So let's talk about insulin resistance. What is it? How do you know if you have it, and how do you prevent it? I think this is something that affects all of us to some degree. If we look at the data, over 50% of the adult population in the United States has either pre-diabetes or diabetes. And the problem is it's so silent, you don't even know you have it. Insulin resistance is the root cause of all of these diseases. So today I'm going to share with you the top 3 things you need to know about insulin resistance. Let's go. One of the biggest challenges when it comes to insulin resistance is how do you define it? The technical definition is that it's a condition where your body has adapted to sustained high levels of insulin, and the result is an increase in blood sugar because your cells are not responding to insulin properly. And what's really happening is your cells have become resistant to the signal of insulin, telling them to open up and take in that blood sugar. Your body tries to compensate by producing more and more insulin, but eventually the beta cells in the pancreas that make insulin become exhausted, and now you have a situation where there's not enough insulin to pull down the blood sugar. And this is when you start seeing an elevation in blood sugar. Now, if you remember your basic biology, glucose is the basic currency of energy for your body. So if you have high levels of glucose floating around in your bloodstream, the cells in your body cannot access this energy. And in order to prevent damage to the cells, the kidney starts excreting this excess sugar into the urine, and this results in excessive thirst, and in the worst cases, you get sugar in the urine. And this can happen very quickly, or it could be something that develops over decades. But ultimately, this leads to other complications, including heart attacks, strokes, blindness, and kidney failure. The problem with defining insulin resistance clinically is that you cannot see it. It's not like you can look under the microscope and actually see the cell surface receptors that are desensitized. So instead, we rely on biomarkers in blood work or tests that evaluate how insulin is working in the body. For example, elevated hemoglobin A1C would be a sign that your cells are not taking in the glucose. And remember, insulin's job is to help the cells take in this glucose and use it as energy. Or another test that can be done is fasting insulin. This gives you an idea of how much insulin is floating around in the bloodstream. And if you have too much insulin, then that can be an indicator of insulin resistance. And then probably the most common test that people are familiar with is the glucose tolerance test. This involves drinking a sugary drink and then measuring the amount of time it takes for the blood sugar to drop back down to normal. In someone who has insulin resistance, this will take longer than normal. There are several conditions that can lead to insulin resistance, but the main ones that we see are obesity, especially visceral fat that surrounds the organs, lack of exercise, too many carbs in the diet, eating too frequently through the day, stress, and also genetics. And these can all converge on the same pathway of too much insulin. Now that we have that part out of the way, let's talk about the symptoms of insulin resistance. And the big thing to keep in mind here is that they are non-specific. You don't necessarily see one symptom, and that tells you that you have insulin resistance. Instead, it's a cluster of different signs and symptoms that, when taken together, point towards the diagnosis. Also keep in mind that many people with insulin resistance are totally asymptomatic, which makes it really hard to diagnose. But the symptoms that people usually associate with insulin resistance are elevated blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, darkening of the skin, skin tags, thinning hair, sleep apnea, frequent urination, mood changes like depression and anxiety, infertility and irregular menstrual cycles in women. However, the problem with relying on symptoms to guide the diagnosis is that they can be caused by so many other disorders, making it difficult to distinguish between them. In terms of preventing insulin resistance, I want to highlight 3 key areas. First is diet, second is exercise, and third is stress management. Let's start with diet. The two primary dietary factors that influence insulin resistance are the amount of carbohydrates that you eat and the frequency of eating. When it comes to carbs, the real issue is not the total amount, but rather the type of carb and the glycemic index. This refers to how quickly that carbohydrate raises your blood sugar. So, a low glycemic index means that the carb is digested slowly and gradually and does not produce that spike in blood sugar, while a high glycemic index means that the carbohydrate is rapidly digested and absorbed and the blood sugar shoots up. So the types of carbs that you eat matter. The American Heart Association recommends eating less than 25 grams of net carbs per meal, which works out to roughly 150 grams per day. Another thing that can make a difference is slowing down the rate that you digest those carbs by adding protein and fiber to the meal. Protein and fiber slow down the digestion and absorption of carbs, which in turn helps maintain stable blood sugar levels. Frequent eating throughout the day can stimulate insulin release, leading to potential insulin resistance over time. This is known as snacking. So our bodies were not designed to handle multiple meals a day. Our digestive system was designed to handle 3 meals, with maybe a snack in between. So if you're someone who eats 3 or more meals a day, consider reducing it to 2 meals and see how that affects your hunger and satiety. And then finally, the type of fats that you consume plays a role in insulin resistance. Saturated and trans fats found in processed foods can promote inflammation and worsen insulin sensitivity. Instead, focus on incorporating healthy, unsaturated fats from sources like avocados, olive oil, and nuts into your diet. These fats can help reduce inflammation and support overall metabolic health. Next, let's talk about exercise. Regular physical activity is crucial in managing insulin resistance. Exercise increases the number of insulin receptors on cells, making them more sensitive to insulin. It also helps cells absorb glucose without insulin, giving them a different pathway to obtain energy. And the ideal exercise for improving insulin sensitivity includes both aerobic and strength training. Aerobic exercises such as brisk walking, cycling, or swimming can help control blood sugar levels and improve cardiovascular fitness. They help burn off excess glucose and increase the uptake of glucose by muscles. Strength training exercises like weightlifting can help build muscle mass, which improves insulin sensitivity. It also helps with weight management and can aid in reducing body fat percentage, which is important for managing insulin resistance. And then lastly, we have stress management. Prolonged stress can elevate cortisol levels, which can lead to insulin resistance. Stress can trigger the release of cortisol and adrenaline, hormones that can increase blood sugar levels and interfere with insulin's ability to lower them. So finding ways to manage stress, like yoga, meditation, or spending time in nature, can help maintain better insulin sensitivity. Regular practice of mindfulness or meditation has been shown to reduce stress and improve insulin sensitivity. As you can see, insulin resistance is a complex condition, but understanding its causes, symptoms, and preventive measures is essential for maintaining metabolic health. By being aware of the risk factors, watching for the symptoms, and making lifestyle changes, we can all work towards preventing insulin resistance and living healthier lives. Thank you for watching. Take care and stay strong.